Mamdani's appointee says you'll own nothing. You're gonna own nothing, and you're gonna like it as a good American. As a good New Yorker, as a proud New Yorker. That's what. You'll own nothing, and why would people want to own a home? That doesn't make any sense to me. That just, why would you want to buy your own home, raise a family in that home? Like, why would you want to do that? It's such a stupid expense that no one needs anyway. Like, houses are for losers, right?
20th. I hope I will have the pleasure still to be invited for the meeting when we meet for the 20th Governance Summit. You will use the app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but...
Why the fuck would you want to own a car too, huh? Yeah. You rent a car and you like it. Be a good American. That's what you do. You want to rent everything. You don't want to own a single thing in your life. You want to, hey, don't buy physical DVDs. No, that means you can't play the subscription every month. Come on. Why would you want to pay a one-time purchase over a lifetime's worth of purchases? Come on, think about it. Makes too much sense to me.
Automatically guided car, a self-driven car, will come to your hotel or wherever you are and will bring you to the airport. No, Los Angeles is one of the cities with the heaviest traffic, who told me in 2030 Los Angeles will be private car driven free.
So that right there is a man called Klaus Schwab, the former chairman of the World Economic Forum, a guy who looks like a Bond villain. And
so the big here's what the globalists and everyone, they want us to be forever renters. They don't want us to ever feel like we have the right to own something. They don't want us to have that level of independence. They want us to always be dependable on someone else. You don't have the right to be independent. That's what they want to tell us. And if we don't stand up and listen, and we go, hold on, this is not what we want to do, we'll see digital ID here in America before we know it, because it's happening in the UK right now. It's a test subject. If you don't think it's going to come over here, then you guys are going crazy. We're going to see the United States attempt to do this crazy economic, they're nuking the dollar right now. They're just totally killing the value. So then they can just tell everyone, oh, we're going to switch it to a cryptocurrency. And now that $38 trillion debt's going to become $2 trillion, right? Something stupid like that. That's what all this is. How they can control all the money, how they control everyone's assets, how they control everyone's daily life. They don't want people to ever feel independent again. That's what they want. It sucks.
Oftentimes, this is the person that is most associated with the quote, you will own nothing and be happy. However, I do want to point out that throughout the whole course of this speech and deep into my research into Klaus Schwab as an individual, that this quote is something from the Mandela effect. He did not actually say this. However, it doesn't come out of nowhere. It's actually promoted by this particular article in the World Economic Forum. However, this article is actually written by somebody who is in the parliament in Denmark, and the headline is as follows, so you can understand why people attribute this to him and his timeline at the World Economic Forum. So the headline reads, welcome to 2030. I own nothing, I have no privacy, and life has never been better. Now, it's written by somebody from the Denmark parliament called Ida Auken. If I pronounced that wrong, I don't really give a damn. It's a communist monster who wrote this, and it reads as follows. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city in quotes. I don't own anything.
Yes, communist comrade, our city. And I just imagine right now like the Soviet Union song, like dun 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 dun, like in the background. I don't know if I'm gonna do that in this video. If I'm gonna throw editing, can I copy? Is that copyrighted?
I don't own a car, I don't own a house, I don't own any appliances or any clothes. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in the city. Everything you've considered a product has now become a service.
Great.
We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, these things became free, so it ended up not making sense for us to own much. Now, I'll link this whole entire article in the description of this video so you can understand what people are actually actually referring to when they talk about
It's just
Klaus
so
Schwab
annoying.
and the World Economic Forum advocating for ending all private property rights. But the point is, even though this wasn't technically said by Klaus Schwab, that doesn't mean that sentiment hasn't spread throughout various governments around the country, and chief among those governments is the New York City government, because Mayor Mamdani's tenant advocate appointee, Cea Weaver, is a proponent of this idea that you will own absolutely nothing and be happier for it, and this is what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
I believe that anybody who needs housing should get it. We need to advocate vigorously for projects and policy proposals that get us closer to a universal right to housing. And that doesn't mean that housing doesn't cost money to own and operate and run. It just means that if you can't afford it, you should be able to get it anyway.
So Reason.com actually interviewed Cea Weaver, somebody who we've made videos about in the past on this channel, back.
I agree with that in principle, right? Like, I do fundamentally believe every American should have the right to a house. Every American should have the right to American tax-paying money, right? You guys picking up what I'm putting down now?
In 2021, and of course they're starting to republish the clips of those interviews due to the fact that Cea Weaver has been appointed to the Mamdani administration. Now, of course, we talked about before her.
And by the way, I'm not saying we give blanket checks to people, even though like there is definitely some argument for that. I'm not, like there is an argument to say that if you like where the economy is going right now and the way how the job market is looking like it'll never recover the way it used to be, that like there may be like like Andrew Yang, I remember went on he went on a podcast, or sorry, he went on a news station recently, and he was talking about how his original proposal on universal basic income 10 years ago was like people didn't like it, and to be honest with you, I didn't really necessarily believe it. But as you see, because I didn't think the job market would ever disappear, or at least the white-collar job market would ever disappear the way it has. Or I didn't even think we would get AI. I'm going to be ultimately honest. I didn't think we would get AI in my life. Not that we couldn't get there, but I thought it was like another 30 years away. So I thought we would have like just some status quo shit for the next few years. Nope, AI came right around the corner in my key part of my life. So now I have to deal with competing against H-1B visas. I got to compete against foreign immigrants. I got to compete against fellow Americans, and I got to compete against AI for jobs. It's a crazy market right now for that. So that's where I understand that maybe, like, I believe in hypothetically we are in the richest country in the world, and we are allowing our politicians to ruin this country, take advantage of its people, waste its tax-paying money on stupid, useless wars. And to an extent, I always can understand taking something in American interest, looking at something in an American interest perspective. At the same time, when we got Americans that are struggling and they're hurting in this country, and I just see Somalians getting millions of dollars, and I'm seeing our fraud system in LA probably is corrupted as well, and I'm seeing the fraud system in Minnesota completely go in and out of itself. It's guys, how convenient, right? We discover fraud in Minnesota, and now there's all this protesting happening, right? You're gonna tell me that this shit ain't organized to an extent? It's disgusting. They want us to just be okay and believe in everything and just go, yeah, no, you just accept it. And on top of it, we're going to import all these people into your country, and you can't even own a home. It's all backwards. Like, and I agree that, like, now we may have to do some sort of basic income because it is how the market's doing. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to that, but the problem is we have a deficit, and that's not looking like it's getting paid anytime soon. Our politicians are going to die in the next 10 years, so they don't care about that shit. So that's going to fall on us, and we won't be able to have, like, I believe, like, why don't we have more paid time off? Like, why can't Americans have more time to travel? Why do we feel like we're stuck in this endless working cycle and we can't have breaks anymore? We can't enjoy certain aspects of life. All of that's been taken away from us. Now Americans feel less likely now than ever before that they can't start families. It's so expensive to start a family financially. Sometimes you may just got to, have a just you may just gotta like accept the reality that if you want a kid, you may gotta just a tough world that we live in right now. But because a lot of people are playing with time, and now you want them to they can hardly feed themselves and they have to feed a kid, and then maybe they have another kid, right? But we want to promote more American families. We want American families to succeed in life. How are we going to let American families succeed in life if they can't even feed themselves? How are we going to promote the American family? So we're going to have a population crisis on our hands, is what we're dealing with right now, a population birth rate crisis, and we're just going to supplement that with immigration. And then on top of it, we're going to give all this and look, we all saw the benefits to get. Chicago spent like what, 500 million, some crazy number like that on immigration alone. Imagine $500 million being put towards infrastructure into Americans directly, right? You know how crazy that would have been, but instead we have to take care of someone else when we're not even taking care. Like a government has its ultimate responsibility to its people, and I don't feel like it's living up to their end of the bargain. I don't. Sorry.
Previous
they
tweets
ain't. State
about
government
how her
is not either.
Policy goals are to impoverish white men. Quote, private property, including and kind of especially home ownership, is a weapon of white supremacy masquerading as wealth-building public policy. And she says she wants to impoverish the white middle class because homeowners...
This is why women like her, specifically white, because I can be racist, I guess, towards my own people, right? That's okay because I'm white. I can be racist towards white people, sure. People like her are genuinely disgusting. Disgusting. I don't care who you are. The fact that you hate your own people that much speaks a lot about just where you're at. Like, why do you, you can't change who you are. You can't change what you look like. I guess to be fair, you can. But, you really can't overall. Most people can't. And the fact that you have people like her in these positions of power that are saying this garbage is disgusting, and it's repulsive, and to be honest with you, it's pathetic. I honestly just don't understand how people think like this. I mean, my people, I'm Italian and I'm Greek, and I'm very proud of that heritage. Very proud of my heritage. Most of Western society is built on Roman law and Greek philosophy. Of course I'm proud of that. My people have done a lot for the world. But at the same time, the fact that they're just openly saying this shit, and there's still white liberals are going to look at that and go, oh my God, that makes perfect sense to me. Let's go after the white middle class like they're already fucking struggling enough. It doesn't make sense. And also, it just continues the race games. They don't want people to be unified on a wealth class issue. It's rich versus poor. This isn't a race problem. But these people like her are going to continue to divide us. Because they ain't going to benefit anybody. Like, what are we doing here? How do we allow this logic to just go in our government and just be okay? Is disgusting. This is America. How do we allow this?
Racist and failed public policy. Now, she also says, I endorse the No More White Men in Political Office platform and all sorts of asinine racist and far leftist nonsense that she tweeted out. But of course, many on the left wing are saying, oh my God, Sean, oh my God, right wing, you're so cruel to Cea Weaver. She was just a little baby girl when she tweeted all that stuff back in 2021, back in 2020, 2018, 2019, even though she is 37 years old right now, meaning that she was a fully formed adult who, by the way, has been working in the same kind of government policy to which he now holds a position. So the idea that this was somehow excusable youthful indiscretions is absurd and ridiculous. But again, Reason, taking advantage of this situation, is publishing her radical positions about how housing is actually a right and how we have to make it affordable for everyone, which may sound good on the surface, but in reality and actuality, what Cea Weaver's goal actually is to destroy private property rights in the name of making housing a human right, because like was pitched in that World Economic Forum article, her goal and the Mamdani administration goal is for you to own nothing, but don't worry, they promise you'll definitely be happier for it.
We need to sort of think about the role that sort of exclusion and profit, which are the sort of characteristics of the private property market, have played, and think about different systems and structures that we could put into place that would help more people be housed.
You said the relationship between landlords and tenants is inherently exploitative. So what you're proposing is a rental market that is entirely financed by the government, or that is just financed by the government for those who are in need?
Yeah, financed by the government.
Entirely financed by the government.
Yeah, that's what I think long term. Yeah.
Whenever anyone's not paying their rent, the government will pay it.
Something like that.
So in this particular clip, you have the reason host asking her
Something like that. She doesn't even know what. That is like, look, in a perfect Chi-Chi world, I guess, and yeah, that can work. Just not reality we live in. Like, believe me, I want the government to build houses. I want the government to build so many homes. We're going to have too many homes. But they don't want to do that. They could invest in that market. They could pass legislation to encourage more house build, maybe lower regulation, do some form of a change to alleviate the pressure, maybe subsidize some of the materials to help build homes. Like, they could do that, but they don't want to, because the problem, and I do, and this is where I am a little sympathetic with some older people, is that a lot of older people do unfortunately have all their money is pretty much like it's their house. Their house is all their value and all their wealth. That's where it's at. Like, they make enough money to live, they pay the bills, they save a little money, but a lot of where their value is in their property. I hate how that's the idea of what a house should never be, is something that you can just miraculously gain like a 400K worth of value over, or 200K worth of value. It doesn't make sense. A house is a necessity. We all need homes. So if you're making regulations harder, you're making cost of products higher, you're making just the employees, they cost more. Like, all of it just adds up. The whole system's backwards, but they don't want to do that because they don't want to devalue the homes. So that's why we won't see the government do it in this current form. Unfortunately, the older generation just doesn't get that, because some of them do genuinely believe that all you gotta do is just put the fucking sleeves up and start getting down there and just start hustling. They want you to do that. It's kind of stupid.
Of housing will be entirely financed by the government, and therefore does that mean that if somebody can't pay their own rent, it will just be covered by the government? And Cea Weaver ends up saying something like that at that moment in time in this particular clip in the interview. But in reality, her long-term policy goal is far more destructive, far more terrible than that random leftist nonsense that, again, this woman who is a charisma vacuum, who can't even look into the camera when she's speaking on an interview, is delivering right there. Because it's not just the government supporting people that are in poverty by paying the cost of their rent in order for them to afford housing. It's not just rent stabilization and rent control, which New York has tried for decades and decades, and it hasn't
worked in LA either, unfortunately. I was watching the Caleb Hammer show, and he had someone who their dad has had an apartment in LA, like we're talking like a rich part of LA for since like the mid 90s. And he's just been grandfathered in, obviously, because his brother was living in the apartment, then he ran it. And he was talking about selling that apartment at $950 a month. He's paying to live in downtown LA. $950. That's and he has a huge apartment, apparently. He's in a prime real estate spot. But because he's been grandfathered in, he was like, well, the apartment's a little run down. The landlord won't do anything about it. And that's really the problem with rent control, that in theory it's good, but there's no initiative for these landowners, these landlords, to invest in the property. It just doesn't make sense. Why would they do that, right? If I can't charge you more rent, I'm not getting more money a month, why would I repair your shit? Sorry, figure it out yourself. So obviously, he has to probably fix it himself, and he doesn't want to do that. So in theory it's great. In my opinion, it doesn't really work. I just wish we would just subsidize, because we did it with the GI Bill when the soldiers came home from the war. It's possible. A lot of these homes that are around that World War II era were built with the intention of, we need to get houses built for these people, and we want them to start families, and that's how the baby boomers got born. So it's happened before. We just ain't doing it in the right way. Lower restrictions, lower regulations. Stop making it so impossible to build.
been an
and I
absolute
need
failure
19
in this
permits
city,
to do
just
it
like
with.
each and every place where it's been tried. What her ultimate goal is to deny you the ability to own any kind of property, make sure the government or
This is
some
straight
other entity
communism.
managed by the government, aka the government, owns it, and no matter what, you're constantly going to be paying in order to live there, because in reality, you are not allowed to occupy, in her ideal world, any property that you individually own. It's all owned by the state.
What I am envisioning is a
Yes, communist
world in
comrade.
which the housing is owned by a collective and people are paying 30% of their income in order to live in their house.
She's doing it like I'm not trying to rip her now, but if she's doing an interview, she looks like she just woke up out of bed. Like genuinely.
If your income is zero, you pay zero. If your income
Like I mean, look, she does seem kind of pretty, but she also has like the crazy look in her eyes, so that's why like I would stay away
is
personally.
$500,000 a year, you're paying 30% of that. And the government is providing the government is the sort of owner, or not even the owner. The government doesn't have to be the owner, but the government is what's making sure all of that sort of works in cash flows.
So look, I could make a lot of commentary about Cea Weaver in this particular clip. The fact that she is smiling awkwardly, the fact that she's a charisma vacuum, the fact that she doesn't seem to understand the concept of lighting whenever she's conducting an interview, despite the fact that she actually gave quite a number of interviews at these moments in time. But what I really want to focus on is the substance of what she said right there, because it's an absolutely disastrous proposition.
What I am envisioning is a world in which the housing is owned by a collective and people are paying 30% of their income in order to live in their housing. If your income is zero, you pay zero. If your income is $500,000 a year, you're paying 30% of that.
So this should be obvious, but some of you might not actually be aware of this fact, so I'm going to fill you in on it. But if you go to a financial advisor and you break down your costs and you say you want to buy a house or rent an apartment, that financial advisor will tell you, because this is considered a general personal finance
15%?
rule, that the absolute maximum that you should ever spend on your housing is 30% of your income.
Okay, I was a little low.
That is where Cea Weaver is starting off as the point that everybody needs to pay, whether they make $0, meaning they'll pay 0% of that $0 income.
No more. Oh, I guess no more than 30. So that's like the cap. Yeah.
Or if they make $500K, meaning they will spend $150,000 per year in order to live in her ramshackle, horrible, terrible apartment that she is providing via the government and making sure everything cash flows without the ability to ever own that. That's an absolutely awful deal. It's an awful.
I mean, we kind of knew that New York was going to be attempting to do this communist rally there. Like, we knew that was going to happen. We tried warning the people of New York. A lot of those voters left the state already. Like, they're all living in Florida now and attempting to ruin other states. So we know that New York is probably a lost cause, but we can all look at this as like a reflection for everyone else around the world and go, we can't allow this to continue. Like, this is like not good. Now, if she was talking about going after someone like the big chiefs that own a lot of the apartments, like she was like, we want to go after some of these big hedge funds and corporations that own a lot of these properties, then maybe you can wrap my head around that a little bit, like you're gonna attempt to get those back. But no, you're not even saying that. You just want to buy up everything, own it, and then make us it's like an extra tax we have to pay. They don't want you ever to like have money and enjoy your life. They just want you to give every single dollar. Like, you are going to be working 50+% of your year is going to be getting all paid for by like you're paying your money to the government. Like 50% of your check, right? I think Canadians, I think I saw like a chart, like a calendar chart where it literally was over 50% of their, or something along that line, of their days that they are working technically for the government because of all the taxes and shit they have to pay. That doesn't make sense. No one should be doing that, and it's ridiculous that we've allowed taxes to get this out of control anyway, and we've allowed our government to crazily spend abundant amounts of bullshit anyway. Like, we could take some of that money and actually put it towards good people and put it towards like Americans, and people wouldn't care.
deal for everybody involved, because again, 30% is the absolute max you should ever spend on housing. But also remember that this woman is a socialist in other regards, so she also wants to tax your income at a progressive rate in order to fund a bunch of other government social service programs. So you're probably going to be paying, under her ideal scenario, at least 70 to 80% of your income in taxes. And yes, I'm counting that 30% in order to provide the government housing as a tax, because that's exactly what
Over
it is.
half.
And this is her first pitch, what she wants to do ideally with housing.
60% of your income, over half, is going to the government. Do you guys honestly trust the government to really spend your money? Like, not in the current form. If we had maybe capable leaders, like, you can convince me behind the idea, but I would never do this shit. More than half of my income, like, if I had crazy welfare benefits and like I would be able to like have a free meal, like free meals during the week and shit, like I don't know, like if I was seeing like benefits, and like yeah, maybe you can like show me where my money's being spent. But I just don't feel like our money's being spent on us at all. It's like we are last resort, especially if you're younger or even farther down the rabbit hole, because a lot of the money goes towards Medicaid, Social Security. That's like over half the budget right there.
And by the way, there are a bunch of other interviews that she's given where she acknowledges that the rent stabilization and rent control is not actually meant to lower the cost of living for people in public housing or for people in rent stabilized housing. The actual goal of that is to drive those building owners out of business in order to have the government have more control of the housing market, in order to sell this as a solution for the unaffordability crisis that is created by the very government policies that she advocated for. Quote, I don't really disagree with this, but a couple of things. I think, quote, pass really strong rent control, end quote, is a more effective way to shrink the value of real estate than reducing rezoning applications, which have mixed results vis-a-vis property values. And by the way, when I say she advocated for them, I am not being hyperbolic. I'm not talking about in theory or anything of the sort. This is a woman who is championing the 2019 rent stabilization / rent control law that was signed by Governor Andrew Cuomo, passed into law under the progressive wave. And that is the reason why we've had tens of thousands of rent stabilized apartments being pulled off the market, because one of the things that that law did, that again, Cea Weaver is an advocate for, was actually remove an incentive to repair and replace apartment buildings, thus making them able to be rented by other people, you know, bringing them up to code, which of course was getting a rent adjustment after you made those improvements.
Rent stabilized apartments are highly sought after in New York City, but the number of those available for renting is the subject of a just-released report from the nonpartisan New York City Independent Budget Office. The IBO says that more than 13,000 apartments sat vacant for at least 2 years between.
And that's really where the core issue is that there's just a lot of vacant homes. And like hypothetically, in a perfect world, I wish the government can go in there and go, look, we got to figure this out. Sorry, we can't be doing this. People need to live in those because we need housing. Like, I wish we can do that. But then the problem is, the government will then turn around and do shit like this, right, and just make the problems even worse. So it's really just we have totally incompetent people who genuinely who have no idea what they're doing. Like, they make it seem like I can do it. Like, I didn't think I was like quality enough to do it. Didn't think I had the skills. But after you see these writers, like I've seen so many videos on the writers, I've seen so many videos on these politicians. You're like, oh my god. You're like, it's not like I thought these when I was younger. I had so much respect for like older people, and I was like, oh, they're so wise. They lived life. They know everything. And then I got older, and then I said, they're not wise, and half of them have no idea what they're talking about. Now, there's a lot of them who ride with me, and they're great people, but there's the other half who have no idea what they're talking about.
2021 and 2022.
And of course, like when there's no, like I said earlier, remember how I brought up how there was no incentive for this? So yeah, all these homes are just going to sit vacant on the market. No one lives in them. Everyone wins. There you go. You got rid of the whole idea of having apartments. What they need to do is they need to try to get these apartments into people who are going to own and live there. That's the problem. We got to get these apartments out of people who are just going to waste time renting them. I wish we can somehow fix that problem. I'd rather just not give it, but somehow if we can organize a sale, or somehow we can get those apartments in people's hands who actually need it and who are going to pay taxes and be good lawful citizens. That's what we should do.
Owners don't want those apartments to sit vacant. It makes no sense. A vacant apartment helps nobody.
Frank Ricci, Executive Vice President of the Rent Stabilization Association,
Helps
says from
nobody.
their perspective, a number of vacancies are the result of changes to the law in 2019 that restrict rent increases for stabilized units, especially if significant repairs are needed to make an apartment habitable.
And it could be anywhere from $40,000 to $100,000, depending on the size of the apartment. But under the current law, the owner is only allowed an $89 a month increase. So let's say you have a $700 a month apartment, you have to put in $50,000 to get $89 a month back.
And no one would do that. Like, that doesn't make any economic sense at all. Like, who in their right mind would go, yeah, I'm going to drop $100K and I can get an extra $85 a month. Yippee. Woo. So great. It's like fucking chump change. That's where, like, we do need like, this is where these socialists don't always understand, is that we need capitalism to kind of live and breathe, so it could be a good competitive market. But if there's not enough houses and apartments being built, like, I would like to see, like, these apartments, when we build them, we can put, like, a cap. Like, we can convince nicer areas, because I know a lot of nice neighborhoods and stuff don't want to do affordable housing because they don't like the crowd that comes in with that. So an idea that is that, fine, in some of these nicer neighborhoods, and I'm not saying we put all the lower income people in one neighborhood, that's just the real shit. Sorry, that's just how life works. Some people don't want to live by that. It is what it is. But a solution to that problem is that we can go, okay, low end you make 40K, 50K a year, and the max you can make a year is like 150. So you're going to have a nice, good, well-rounded group of people from all different financial classes, dual income, single, dual income, whatever. And you can make adjustments on kind of how the numbers work. But the point of that is that you'd be having people who just need a good place to live and they're just trying to go by, right? Like, I'm okay giving people a nice range if they want to rent, and if they want to kind of live in a nice affordable housing. They're going to, most likely those people, because they're making good money, they're going to take care of the place they live around them. That's genuinely how that works. So that, I think you can potentially convince people behind. I really do. I think you can convince people behind the idea of, like, a middle ground affordable housing. Potentially.
Your rate of return is going to be 30 or 40 years.
So you can only get an $89 rent adjustment after you improve an apartment, which means if you have to spend like $100,000 or $50,000 to bring the unit up to code, it's not going to be economically viable for you to do so for something like 30 or 40 years, if ever. And again, that assumes that 30 or 40 year timeline, that there would be no upkeep and repairs along the way. Cea Weaver advocates for that, even though it has shown problems. She's never retracted that advocacy, and that is because her goal is to destroy the private housing market in the city of New York and eventually nationwide.
The housing crisis. The solution has to be moving toward the full decommodification of housing. In other words,
see how he says that with such a joy? Like, we are going to get rid of your housing. Snip.
Moving away from the status quo, in which most people access housing by purchasing it on the market, and toward a future where we guarantee high-quality housing to all as a human right.
Oh man!
So how can we do it?
Ask the Russians how that went. Those nice Soviet blocks. Like, people still live in those today, and like, look, they do their job, but they ain't the nicest thing imaginable. Like, it could be better.
We can start by making sure people who access housing on the private market have ironclad protections against abuse and exploitation. But to go further, toward the Vienna model, we'll have to go beyond the market. We can establish community land trusts to gradually buy up housing on the private market and convert it to community ownership. We can give tenants a right of first refusal.
See, like, that's like, if you can do it to where the government steps in, buys it, fixes it, repairs it, and has a nice seamless process on it vets people and it gives it to actual, like, genuine people who can afford to pay there. Like, you can do it where you guys are like the fixer-uppers. You go in there, you fix it up for people, you redo it, and then you give it to people who are actually going to pay the bills. And then you can have a more lower income housing where it's like people are going to struggle a little bit. You still clean it up, give people a nice place to live. But then the thing is, a lot of those people who are struggling, like, some of them do need rehab, some of them do need medical help, and we should provide those resources. Like, we got to fix Americans. I think there's a lot of Americans who are really broken mentally, especially after COVID, and they genuinely just need someone to talk to. And if they're not going to seek God, then they need to seek other help. And America doesn't really believe in rehabilitation. We do believe in punishment. Well, at least half the country believes in punishment. The other half allows it. And other people, other like times, we just have to realize that like we know where people are. Like if people are in bad environments, if people feel like the area around them is garbage, you're gonna like your environment sometimes creates people, and that's just simply true. Sometimes it's like you can put the greatest person in a bad neighborhood, and if the neighborhood is, then that environment can change them. So yeah, sometimes we may have to invest in some of these areas that have been simply forgotten about, and like places like Chicago, New York, LA have dumps all over the place. That's where they. So I can understand where if the government can step in somewhere along the line to get it done. I'm not entirely opposed on that, but we have to see it transition back to people. Like they are essentially paying the government potentially to own these houses, and the government could make money off of that if for like a one-time payment. I'm potentially okay with that, but I know that's not exactly what
to
he's
buy
saying.
out their landlords when buildings go up for sale. And we can fully commit to a new era of social housing, ending subsidies for luxury housing development and using our wealth to
Well, that is true. Like we got to stop building random luxury like apartments and stuff if no one's going to afford, if people can't live there. Like I don't care if it's in a great part of New York. Like people should be able to live in downtown Manhattan if they want to. Like you should be able to afford that. It shouldn't be ridiculous.
beautiful, high-quality social housing projects that offer good homes and strong communities to everyone. We won't decommodify housing overnight, but we know what we have to do, and we have history to guide us.
And by the way, this is also Mamdani's goal. He outlined this when he did an interview with the Gravel Institute and a bunch of other various forums. And in fact, we talked about this before. There was a building that he visited to talk about how bad the landlord was in said building. Never pointed out that the reason that unit is economically unviable, and by the way, the units in all the buildings owned by that landlord, Pinnacle Group, were economically unviable, was because of rent control and rent stabilization. But Mamdani was making the case that this should be taken over by the city. However, in a court filing when they were going to be sold in bankruptcy, he actually had his attorneys tell the truth. And what they said in that court filing is that the reason they don't support this sale is that because of the number of rent controlled and rent stabilized units, which by the way represented 98% of the 5,200 units in that portfolio, it would not be economically viable for anybody to own these buildings. So in court, when they actually have
no
to
one
testify
lives there.
under oath, they admit that it's their system that are creating these problems, but in public they blame the landlords, even though again all of Mamdani's appointees have the goal of depriving you of your property rights. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, the fact that this woman has a horrible track record in this specific realm of policy, passing or actually helping to pass one of the most destructive laws in the history of the state of New York, that 2019 rent control law, she's also somebody who doesn't think and cannot stand up to scrutiny because she's weak-minded in a bunch of other ways. It's not just her looking
that's
weak
not a great
and not
look.
being able to stare at the camera while she's doing an interview. It's the fact that she can't handle basic questioning, which is why the Daily Mail has all these different various photos of her crying and throwing a fit and
Oh my
retreating
God.
back into her apartment, which by the way happens to be in Crown Heights, a historically black neighborhood. I bring this up because this woman wants to punish gentrifiers despite the fact that she is a gentrifier.
The white woman fake crying thing. I could do it too, but like.
But yeah, this is the pathetic person that again has been given power over you under the Mamdani administration in order to again specifically destroy the housing market so the government could take it over. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Mamdani plan to make sure you own nothing. Till next time.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Oh, this is a great video, probably. This channel is fantastic, but let's go back to the other guy real
We
quick.
meet for the 20th. I hope I will have.
No, that was that woman should be nowhere near politics. I mean, she's straight up saying she wants to go after white neighborhoods, which is like totally just disgusting. And I remember people were thinking that Mamdani was going to do that, and he said that. I know a lot of people defended him on that, and they were like, no, he's not going to do that. But then you got people in his corner that are literally saying that. And the fact that she's also white on that, just for me, like, it just keeps this like endless narrative of like, yes, we got so many liberal white women that just genuinely hate themselves for no fucking reason, so they want to tell the whole world why they hate themselves. I don't get it. And yeah, not all white women are the problem, but the problem is there's a lot of them that are psychotic, and I just don't get it. Man, it's just like how do we not vet these people out better? How do we not? Well, we tried. People tried telling what was going on, but the problem is that New York has become so lost. It's like it's almost unsavable. In a like unless Trump were to come in there and just say, I'm just gonna get rid of the whole issue. We're gonna reset it, and he just eminent or what uses the he just treason, just like takes over it, militarizes it. Like he could do that. I'm not saying, and I don't want him to do that because you kind of gotta let the people figure it out themselves. It sucks that we're going to lose such an like economically. New York is gone. It's like they're killing such a great, beautiful city. I remember going there in 2019. I've actually been to New York twice, and it was great. I loved it, all pre-COVID. So I have not gone back since, but I don't really have any interest to go back personally. Um, I just it just doesn't seem like I feel like I'd be really disappointed because like I was still able to experience like New York for what it was. Like I was able, to go out and explore and see things, and like yeah, parts of it weren't great, but parts of it were pretty safe for the most part. I didn't think that there was too many issues. I didn't agree with the politics, but that's anything. And now it's so unrecognizable where I don't like I'm just like wow because I have family members that live over there in New York, and it just they tell me it's sad to see where the city's turning. Chicago's the same way. Chicago's unrecognizable too. Man, like in the 10 years that I remember Chicago, it's changed so much. So it's really sad that we're all dealing with this, and we have these stupid politicians who, in my opinion, are just anti-American. Like these people just God, they hate their country. They hate the people who live there. Like like I don't understand how Americans allow this just crap just to continue. It's really annoying. So, all right. Well, I guess we're gonna own nothing and we're gonna deal with it. If she gets what she wants, then we'll all just be just worthless people. So, all right, guys. If you guys like more of these videos, you want to see more of these videos, like, comment, and subscribe for more. I'm trying to think of anything else. Nope, that's about it. So, all right, guys, have a good one. Be safe. Be good. Peace out.